Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Monica Bachchan. I'm a founder of Metalogic Projects Management Services. It is a maximum women staff organization. Today on 27th of October 2020, we are presenting you webinar on adopting international standards for mineral resource reporting, way to attract FDI in India. Webinar presented by Mining Engineers Association of India, Associate Partners, Committee for Mineral Reserves International Reporting Standard, CRISCO, and NACRI, which is National Committee for Reporting Mineral Resource and Reserves in India. This is our 19th webinar during COVID-19 period. Just a short housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the panel discussion, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. I will bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have time for questions at the end. Always mention your company name and organization which you are representing, and who would you like to address your question to. Our chief guest today is Sri V.K. Saraswat. He is a member at NITI Aayog. Our expert panelists are Dr. Aruna Sharma, former secretary at Ministry of Steel, and she is also a co-chair of Foundation of Resource Convergence. Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik, President of Mining Engineers Association of India. Mr. Neil Wells, past chairman of Crisco. Mr. Ken Lomberg, President Crisco. Mr. P.V. Rao, co-chair of NACRI. Dr. Abani Samal, founder and principal of GeoGlobal LLC. Mr. Pankaj Satija, Chief Regulatory Affairs, Tata Steel, and National Council member of MEAI. And I'm your moderator, Monica Bachchan. Now, I would like to start with Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik to please welcome the expert panel. Before that, I would like to give a little introduction about Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik. Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik is presently serving as Director Projects and Business Development for SR Minmet Limited, SR Group of Companies, executing two ambitious projects, pellet plant and greenfield integrated steel plant in the state of Odisha. Mr. Pattnaik has served a long career at Tata Steel and its group companies. Mr. Pattnaik served as the Managing Director of Tata Steel Long Products Limited, formerly known as Tata Sponge Iron Limited. Before completing his tenure with effect of 1st November 2019, Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik completed his BE in Mining Engineering from Osmania University in 1983 and has completed an advanced management program from CEDEP and INSEAD France in 2004. He has served as president of FIMI, Federation of Indian Mineral Industries. Currently, he is the president of MEAI. He was the chairman of CII, Odisha State Council during 2016 and 17. I would like to welcome Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik to please welcome our chief guest and expert panelist. So over to you.
Thank you, Monica, for that introduction. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Mining Engineers Association of India and my own behalf, I am delighted to welcome Dr. V.K. Saraswat. Dr. Saraswat's presence today as the chief guest has actually encouraged all our participants. And we are thankful to you, sir, that at a very short notice, you accepted the invitation and you are here with us. The participants who have joined from across India as well as abroad would look forward to hear your views on this very important subject, and which we believe is in the best interest of the Indian mining sector. Going forward, this will serve India greatly and all. So welcome, sir, once again. I take the privilege of welcoming very distinguished Dr. Aruna Sharma, the former Steel Secretary and co-chair of Foundation of Resource Convergence. Dr. Aruna Sharma has been very active on these webinars, and often, ma'am, your insightful comments, your views on the subject have helped the industry. So we look forward to the participants would eagerly look forward to hearing you today, ma'am. Well, welcome again. I am extremely happy to warmly welcome Mr. Ken Lomberg, the Chairperson Crisco, and Mr. Neil Wells, immediate past Chairperson of Crisco, the top leadership of Crisco. It would indeed be extremely beneficial for the participants to listen to Ken and Neil bringing in a completely different perspective, a global perspective to the subject, and I'm sure the participants will benefit, whether it is our policymakers or our academia and the industry representatives who have in large numbers have logged in for this webinar. So thanks Neil and Ken for accepting the invitation. I know there was some problem with their busy schedule, but they managed it to be here. My colleagues, Dr. P.V. Rao, Dr. Abani Samal, Mr. Pankaj Satija, who are in the National Council of MEAI, Mining Engineers Association of India, and who are subject matter experts. We often look forward to them for presenting the views of the Mining Engineers Association and NACRI. So thanks Dr. Rao, Dr. Samal, and Pankaj for joining. I know Abani is joining in from Utah. It's middle of the night and he's taken the trouble to be with us. So thanks Abani, a special thanks to you for being here. Mining Engineers Association of India, sir, has about 27 chapters across India and over 5,000 members. It's a platform which provides knowledge sharing and mostly the technical on technical matters and in the interest of the mining industry of India. We have been extremely active, and we are happy that due to the initiative of MEAI, we have joined the exclusive club of Crisco, which is only 14 countries in the world are members up to now, and we have one of them. Started with some 5 countries in mid 90s, and today it is only 14 countries, and India is one of them. And led by MEAI, NACRI has developed this Indian Mineral Industry Code, which we believe this code is going to be very helpful for the Indian mineral industry, for the simple reason that this is Crisco compliant, and the exploration results of mineral resource and mineral reserves reporting is global standard, and it is recognized by all the major global stock exchanges across the world. And all the experts will share their views on the subject. I also take this opportunity to welcome all our MEAI members, and there are some former presidents, academicians, students. Large number of students have also joined from engineering colleges. So welcome all the participants, and we look forward to a very successful webinar. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sanjay sir, for giving a welcome address. Now, I would like to start with Dr. Aruna Sharma to please open the session and set the theme. But before that, I'd like to introduce her to you all. Dr. Aruna Sharma is now a practitioner, development economist, a 1982 batch IAS, retired as Secretary Steel. She has established system and robust policies, whatever responsibility she held in government. Besides steel policy, she has enabled GEM, a national scholarship portal. She was member of high-level committee of RBI on digital payment. Her work in development sector is emulated by other states and at national levels. She is now a co-chair of Foundation of Resource Convergence. Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am.
uh, I don't know how to address because we are all at different time zones. But I welcome all the co-panelists who are concerned about the issue. And I thank Monica and her organization to flag this issue. I will like to put it this way that what exactly India is targeting at is our mission that all the survey is to be done only sponsored by the government funds, or do we want the FDIs to come as well as the private sector to invest as we do the investment in the stock exchange? So if the second is the option and if first is the option, is our ecosystem taking care of what is required for the same? If government only sponsored is there, then whatever coding and whatever standards we are adopting today by Geological Survey of India or others is good enough. But if our option is second, that is the FDIs, and we want the private sector to put their money into it, then there is a need to introspect and see that how quickly we are able to understand the internationally accepted standards, which is CRIRSCO, Committee for Mineral Reserves International Reporting Standards. 54 countries have adopted the same. So it is something which is across the globe and adopted. And there are different ways in which different countries have adopted. Canada is one which has come with the legislation. But in other countries, if you look at it, it is the requirement of the stock exchange. So in India, if you want to generate money through stock exchange, then the ball is in the court of SEBI, who will like to issue with an order that anybody who wants to list the company should have Committee for Mineral Resource International Reporting Standards. And if we want it like an open investment of the FDI, then government will have to harmonize their various rules to sort of open a window and make a mandate to adopt the CRISCO. Now, these are the options which are available with us, and the whole question is how quickly we are going ahead with it. There is a very happy scenario where India is very concerned about the issue, and the Ministry of Mining and the related departments, including NITI Aayog to some extent, which Dr. Saraswat will elaborate, that National Committee for Reporting Mineral Resources, Mineral Reserves in India, what you call NACRI, has been flagged or labeled as a national reporting organization, as an NR. And similarly, the MEAI as the professional organization. So in the sense, we have at least identified the name who would be taking this forward when India decides to go ahead in a big way for Crisco. Now, the whole challenge and the issue for the today's discussions is that if we want it, then how quickly we are adapting to the same, or we will be in a position to go towards the same. The intention of the government is there, which is very, very clear. There is a formal recognition of IMIC by the Indian government to report the exploration results. We have those who have listed the listed companies like NMDC, like Tata, who have adopted due to market requirement and international funding into their organizations, the Crisco. So in a sense, we have a mixed bag on date. But then what is needed is to remove all the ambiguity. So now question comes is, does it require an order by the government provisioning in the related rules to adopt the Crisco? And after adopting this, then the intention on which the India is targeting at to enhance the confidence of the FDIs, the foreign direct investments, and investments like stock and open is also necessary. This is very, very important as we are going ahead, because if you look at the mineral reserve India has got, I think only 17% is what is available today or is being exploited or is in the open market. So there is a huge, huge, huge scope for investment. There is a huge scope to do the survey and make this mineral available. There is equally important that when we are going for these adaptations, are we also looking at multi-stakeholder organizations which will take care and do the balancing act as we are moving ahead? So I think with these two questions, I will stop at this point, and if there are further questions from the audience at a later stage, most welcome. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for setting the theme and raising questions. I will now start with our panelists. We have first Mr. Neil Wells, is a past chairman of Crisco. A little introduction about him. Mr. Neil Wells is the immediate past chairperson of Crisco and a member of Pan-European Reserves and Resource Reporting Committee, a national reporting organization for Europe. Neil completed his bachelor degree in mining geology at the Royal School of Mines, Imperial College, London, and holds a master's degree in mineral industry operations, design and management from the Department of Mining and Mineral Engineering at the University of Leeds, UK. He is a fellow of Geological Society of London, a fellow of the Institute of Material, Minerals and Mining, and a fellow of Institute of Quarrying. He is registered as a chartered geologist and a chartered engineer in the UK, and is registered with the European Federation at Geologist at a European Geologist. He is currently the head of Land and Minerals for the Aggregates Competence Center with Heidelberg Cement. Mr. Neil, I welcome you, and it's over to you. I request you to please unmute your mic.
Thank you, Monica. If you can just let me share my screen, then I can put the presentation up. Thank you. Okay. Which screen is everyone seeing? Is that the correct screen?
It's visible to us. You can put it on slideshow mode. Yes.
Okay, let's try that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to Dr. Sharma for setting the scene on the discussions. We thought it might be helpful as an introduction to this webinar to just discuss some of the development history and requirements for the reporting standards that are all aligned under the Crisco banner. So I'll give you a little bit of history to start, and then we'll consider some of the features of Crisco style reporting, how that's come about, and what its principal purpose is for. So Crisco standards, necessary for a variety of reasons. We're looking at the mining industry as an international business, and it has importance both for national and global economies. Shares in and investments in the mining industry probably contribute to a lot of banks' holdings, pension companies, and individual wealth. But obviously, the mining industry, its assets are depleting. As we remove materials from the ground, the value of those assets is affected. But also, our knowledge of those assets is imperfect before we extract them. If you're manufacturing tires or buttons, you could go into a warehouse and you could count the number of objects that you had, and therefore come up with an exact measure. But when we're talking about geological occurrences and mineral deposits, we don't have that luxury. We can't understand with perfect knowledge what is available. So it's very important that there is a means of clearly communicating risks. That might be in a project, it might be at a mine site, so that the investors and other stakeholders understand well what it is that they're investing in. And in that way, we maintain and keep the trust and confidence of the investors, and maintain trust and confidence in financial markets. This topic has been around for quite some time. Most of you will probably be aware of the briex financial scandal in 1997. A listed company in Canada was raising significant sums of money on the stock exchange in Canada, in Toronto, based on announcements they were making as to the discovery and grade and tonnage available at the Busang deposit in Indonesia. And their share price rocketed from a few cents per share to, at its peak, over I think it was $280 or something in Canadian dollars. And then when the fraud was finally exposed, that share price collapsed back to, again, 6 cents or so on the share. So clearly investors lost absolutely everything. If they bought in that rising market and then were forced to sell or chose to sell, they lost all of their investments. But this goes back even earlier to late 1960s and early 1970s in Australia. The Poseidon nickel boom, as it's known, or nickel bubble, where investors were piling everything they had into nickel shares in Australian markets. And there, the share price rose from 80 cents a ton to over $280, in the space of 5 or 6 months. And again, falling back to very low values very soon after that. So investments in both of these companies were based on announcements that were being made to the public, to the investment community, regarding grade, tonnage, and availability of minerals in the deposits. And this really is what has kick-started the Crisco style reporting. Following the Poseidon nickel boom and bust, JORC was established way back in the early 70s to address this issue, how to improve reporting, how to improve consistency in use of terms and approach. And then shortly before the briex scandal in the mid-1990s, Crisco was established under an earlier name to extend the work of JORC and to see if we could develop a truly international approach to this. And it of course, just a few short years later with the briex scandal, then brought everything into sharper focus and accelerated that work. So Crisco was created with the main aim of promoting international best practices in reporting of exploration results, mineral resources, mineral reserves. And to do this, Crisco has developed what it calls its international reporting template. And this document provides the framework for minimum standards of public reporting. Its primary goal is to deal with public reports. So anything that is made available for the purpose of informing investors or potential investors and advisors. And this includes any form of public announcement that a company may make. So could be annual or quarterly reports, any press releases, information memoranda, publishing and discussing results in technical papers, in conferences and webinars such as this, any website postings, any public presentation. Really, it's any announcement that somebody could pick up on, and then that would influence their investment decision. And the reporting is based on 3 core principles: transparency of information, the materiality, so only providing information that is material to that decision, but also making clear where the gaps lie in that information. And it's all based on the work of a competent person. So somebody who has the qualifications and experience to report reliably on these topics. It was mentioned there are 14 members of Crisco. That is growing all the time. We have India is our latest member. We welcomed India into membership late last year, and of course all the planning for celebrations and ceremonies for that were put on hold by COVID-19. But we fully expect our growth to continue, and we have a number of countries well advanced in discussions and preparation for membership. But the important thing to recognize in this is that each of these members are self-regulating national bodies. Crisco doesn't manage the affairs of India or any of its other members. We provide the umbrella organization to which all these national bodies are members. And each national body maintains its own identity in Crisco, and each is represented equally in the Crisco structure. So on the committee, each of these members is entitled to send 2 representatives who serve as equal members on the committee. Developments in the codes and standards now have a long and established history. So this chart is quite busy and quite complicated, but we can see on the top when all the new standards were developed, principally as national organizations became members. And then below the line, we can see when all of these updates have been happening. And they update fairly frequently, following really the work on the Crisco international template. When we as Crisco update that, some of the countries take that opportunity to update and align their codes with the new version of the template. So the template is there to deliver really 4 main themes: to provide a common approach for all national organizations when they're preparing their own local or national standards and codes. And that's really ensuring that there's a better view of corporate governance. We're maintaining the highest standards of public reporting. The template includes common definitions, and these are key to driving that consistency globally. The common definitions, if you pick up the standard from Canada, compare it to Europe, compare it to South Africa, compare it to India, you will see very little, if any, difference in. They are what drive the common understanding and the consistency when it comes to reporting. There's a common responsibility inherent in the template and mirrored in the national standards and codes, and that's that an experienced or competent person is taking that responsibility for the information put out into the public domain. And through the template, globally, we have common standards. Although there are local differences in each of the standards and codes, what they do ensure is that they're incorporating best practices from around the world as they're developed, and they give us the opportunity to include new topics and emerging topics. And one of those areas right now with Crisco is a stronger focus on environment, social governance. So really following the trends, following the themes, but also acting as a leader in ensuring that these topics are also properly represented in the reporting standards. So the template includes, if you pick up the template, you will see that it includes a number of standard terms and definitions. These are what ensure the consistency between the countries. There are a number of clauses which really expand that scope and provide the requirements for public reporting. And then there are a number of parts that really provide guidance and interpretation, assisting the users of the template and then subsequently the national codes on how to interpret and how to apply both the clauses and the definitions. But as I mentioned, the most important thing is the standard definitions are common in all of the reporting standards, and that's what makes them portable between jurisdictions. So the template is used primarily to assist countries seeking membership of CRIRSCO to develop their codes and standards, but also to align new codes, update their existing standards. It provides advisory content. So it's supporting but not replacing any national codes or national regulation and legislation. And it helps to consolidate topics. So individual national organizations themselves are free to adapt and adopt new parts into their codes and standards, but it gives us as CRIRSCO the opportunity to identify all these new changes, updates, and bring them together and share them with all the other members. But one caution, it provides a model structure. It's not a code or a standard in its own right. So it couldn't be taken as it is and then just adopted into a country. It does require development for the particular requirements of that country. And this is one of the steps with India that during the preparation for membership was one of the topics that, of course, took quite a long time to ensure that the NACRI code was going to be properly applicable in India. So CRIRSCO style reporting, again, it's important to understand what it does and what it doesn't do. It certainly provides that consistent standard for reporting, and it ensures that it's comparable worldwide. It ensures that each of the standards, each of the codes has that clear definition and consistent application. I said right at the start, the mining investment industry is truly a global industry. So there is that need to ensure that investors and financial institutes all see the same language, because then they will all understand and interpret it in the same way. It provides the transparency for reporting. So everything is clear for investors. They understand what information is being presented, what context it is presented in, and then what conclusions may be drawn from that, allowing them to make their decisions. It also, through the use of the competent person, provides accountability. These reports are produced, released, signed by a named individual who therefore provides that measure of accountability directly to the investment community. But what it doesn't do is tell anybody how to estimate reserves and resources, and it certainly doesn't regulate that. That is an item for professional experience and professional practice on the part of the competent person. It doesn't necessarily apply to in-house classification or reporting internally by mining companies, although of course it certainly provides that framework and makes it very easy to do so. In the company that I work for, not only do we report our figures externally to the PERC standard, we now use that entirely in-house because it ensures that we are able to compare and align information from all the countries that we work in. And Heidelberg Cement has a presence in India, own cement operations in India. So it's very useful to be able to report internally the same basis for reserves and resources there as it is in Germany or in the UK or in the US. It doesn't apply to government regulatory reporting. So where governments maintain national inventories of mineral reserves or mineral deposits, unless, of course, that it is written into legislation that it is to be used for that purpose. And some of our member countries, that is exactly that case. It doesn't address any breaches of reporting. So that remains the responsibility of market regulators or exchanges. So if they feel that a report is deficient in some way, then the market will be taking the appropriate action against the company reporting. It doesn't seek to address the misconduct by competent persons. that is something for the professional organizations, and every competent person must be a member of a professional organization that has suitable codes of conduct, codes of ethics, and a disciplinary process. And it doesn't seek to apply a value to the company or asset being reported. It is simply a statement of the potential availability of minerals for the site or combination of sites that are being reported. And just to conclude, I think it's just important to note that the competent persons, through a system of recognition of standards, codes, and of professional organizations, it gives them the license to operate worldwide. So where different reporting codes are accepted into different countries, they could keep reporting under their home code, but also if their professional qualifications are recognized, it gives them the ability to report using different codes in different jurisdictions. And it's this feature, perhaps more than any other, that ensures that we have a consistency worldwide, that we have the ability to use different reporting standards in different jurisdictions, but they still have the same meaning and can be interpreted in the same way, which is vital in providing that reassurance to the international investment community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Neil, for making a presentation. I'm removing you as a presenter. Just one second. So before I move on to our next panelist, I like to have a question from our audience and the panel before we move on. So there is a poll question which we have prepared. So this is now on your screen. Is Indian mineral ecosystem geared up for adopting such standards? Please vote. Is Indian mineral ecosystem geared up for adopting such standards? I request all the audience to vote and panelists to vote. Is Indian mineral ecosystem geared up for adopting such standards? Yes, no, can't say. So here are the results. 53% audience is saying yes, we are ready to adopt new standards. 31% are saying no, and 16% are saying can't say. They're undecided. So the majority is agreeing that we must adopt new standards for mineral resource reporting. Now I will move on to our next panelist. This says a lot. We have Mr. Ken Lomberg, President of Crisco. A little about Mr. Ken. He's a chairperson of Crisco and director at Geology and Resources Pivot. He's a BSc Geography and Geochemistry, BSc Honors Geology, BCom Economics and Statistics. Mr. Ken has 35 years of experience in the mineral industry, especially platinum and gold. He has been involved in exploration and mine geology and has had the privilege of assisting in bringing a mine to full production. His expertise is especially in project management, mineral reserve and resource estimation. Mr. Ken is also a chairperson of SAMREC committee, which is responsible for SAMREC code and represents SAMREC on the Crisco executive. Over to you, Mr. Ken.
Thank you very much, Monica. Would you allow me to share my screen?
Sure.
I'm not seeing. Are you seeing my screen?
I am able to see your screen. You need to click on your presentation. You need to keep it open.
Is it up and running? Can you see my presentation?
I can't see your presentation. You need to open your presentation.
It is open?
No, it's
malfunction, but I'm hopefully going to build on what Neil has spoken about and the importance of Crisco in the terms of the relationship it has with the markets. Now, this is the same slide that Neil presented, and it's good to emphasize the important aspects once again. We deal with local or national and global economies. We're dealing with assets that are depleting, so we do not know enough about them at the beginning. But most importantly, and the relationship for the mining industry is that we need to communicate these risks to the investors. Investors need to understand what the risks are. They need to understand where they're putting their money, and we need to make sure that they're confident. As Neil mentioned, we have some really horrendous history of projects that have been very detrimental to people who've invested lots of money in them, and they have not been successful. So we need to try and avoid that situation in the future. So the financial and operational well-being of projects is important, and communicating the risks is very important, even right at the beginning. So we've presented that the template is one of the critical aspects, and we are unashamedly there to promote international best practice for the reporting of mineral exploration results, mineral resources, and mineral reserves. And this is now a minimum standard for public reporting. And when we talk about public reporting, this is where we are talking about the relationship or the relationship between a project and the public, and that is often through a stock exchange. So the public reporting is the information that gets into the public domain. These are the 14 members of Crisco. We are very great. It's great that India has joined, and it is one of those 14. And we're looking forward to India continuing to contribute to CRIRSCO in the future. The background, Neil has gone through it in detail. The story about the Poseidon nickel boom and bust, about the briex affair in the 1990s. I'm not going to go into any more detail, but importantly, now the aspects are that it's important that these aspects that these things are hopefully not going to happen again, because we have systems in place to avoid it. So public reporting. So this is what goes out into the public domain. The important aspects here are it is signed off because of the way in CRIRSCO is put together. It's signed off by a professional, a competent person who takes responsibility for the information. It's based on reasonable assumptions which can be clearly explained. And the competent person needs to be able to explain those, and he needs to face his peers if he is questioned. There's consistency in terms of standardization and definitions. The important aspect is that it ensures that it's unbiased reporting and identifies the potential risks and uncertainties, so that the investor will know what's there. Balanced reporting is critical, so that the investor is not misled. It must be in a format that allows the comparison of projects, and I'll come to that in a moment. And at the bottom of all that, it must be understandable to a reasonably informed investor. So this is making sure that the information that is put out by mining professionals is understood by the people who are going to put up the money in order to develop the projects or the mines. What it is not the fact that it's a public report doesn't mean that the work is good. It doesn't mean that the project is good. And the way in which it's put together, it's not a recipe that can be used. But the importance of the codes, once again, we've got depleting assets, so we know the least about it at the beginning. And as we progress, we get to know more and more about it. So it's important that the risks and the rewards are understood. When a mine is being developed or a project is being developed, we need substantial capital, we need the right sort of technical expertise, we need to have a long-term outlook, and we need to understand how the risks are carried forward. So this is the base, one of the critical parts of the code. We have a situation where we have mineral resources and mineral reserves, and the way in which this diagram is constructed is to help us understand the risks that are involved. On the left-hand side, we have mineral resources, which go from inferred to measured, which is decreasing risk, increasing information, increasing understanding. And when we transfer the scientific information to engineering and economic, then we call it reserves. It's important that as we move across to the economics, some of the risks are beginning to become mitigated. So these are the standard definitions that are common to all of the 14 codes that exist. Importantly, this allows the investor to understand the level of risk of each project and be able to compare projects that are not in the same jurisdiction and have many different aspects. So in the middle of this is the competent person. The competent person takes the code and applies the code to the information available and then allows it to be reported publicly. Without the competent person, the codes would not work at all. And as we've said, the competent person takes responsibility for what they put out into the public domain, and this makes sure that there's some accountability. So the benefit is that we promote best practice. There's this common language. When we say measured resource in one jurisdiction or in one project, we say measured in another project. it has the same understanding. So the concepts are common. Therefore, we can be comparative. We can compare transactions, we can compare projects, we can compare mines. The important that this allows non-technical professionals to understand it, and therefore they can use it for things like valuation. The codes themselves provide guidance to competent persons to make sure that they put things in the same way. The codes are self-regulated, so there's not an overall body that makes sure that every code is run properly. Each NRO does that themselves. The competent person takes accountability, and the way in which the reporting is done assists with risk mitigation. Now coming back to the importance of the stock exchanges. And the stock exchanges each have their own rules and regulations. Now I've just chosen 4 of them. The Australian stock market, Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the Toronto Stock Exchange, and Hong Kong. Now in Australia, when a company lists on the Australian Stock Exchange trying to raise money, they are required to use the JORC code. In Johannesburg, they're required to use the SAMRAC code. Toronto, they are required to use the SIM standards and report using the NI 43101. So these are all aspects that are codes that are linked to stock exchanges. Hong Kong and AIM, which is in London, any nominated Crisco code can be used. So that means any code can be used for, when there's a listing. The important aspect here is the listing is not allowed without reference to one of the codes. Now this is the Toronto Stock Exchange. They got the largest number of public companies listed. They're not got the highest market capitalization, but they do have the largest number of companies that are listed. This is further commentary. The success of their market is that because they have this link with the Canadian legislation and with the SIM standards, which is the Crisco code, they have been able to generate a huge amount of financial benefit for companies. 53% of global financings on markets have been through the TSX or the TSXV in the last 5 years. That's a huge statistics. So it's important that that happens. It's a lovely example that a till boulder from a glacier was found in southern part of Canada, and it had a significant PGE value in it. The company was listed based on the information of this boulder. The company was then subsequently able to find where the source of that deposit was and progress the project. So there are many, many successful stories that come out of Canada for these listings. This is a comparison of some of the international stock exchanges. The blue is how many stocks are listed, and the orange is the market capitalization. London, the LSE, is by far the biggest of this group, but doesn't have the most number of companies listed. Toronto, the TSX, has the TSX and the TSXV have the most number of listed companies, but they don't have the highest capitalization. But it's important, they wouldn't be where they are if they weren't using the standards that are required in the Crisco standards that are applied in Canada. So let me close with trying to bring this together. Important international codes give good, make sure that there's good governance, so that everything is done in accordance with a set of rules. Make sure that technical expertise, scientific and engineering principles are applied. Make sure that the reporting is reliable, they can be understood by the financial sector, valuations can be used, there's common language and common concepts. And this is all because of the use of public reporting or minimum standards as is set out by the Crisco codes. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ken. I'm removing you as a presenter.
Thank you.
Just 1 second. Thank you so much, Mr. Ken. Now it's time for our chief guest, Mr. VK Saraswat. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to introduce our chief guest to you all and request him to share his knowledge on the subject and guide the industry. About Mr. VK Saraswat, Dr. Vijay Kumar Saraswat retired as Secretary, DRDO, after more than 4 decades of government service. He is ME from IISc Bangalore and PhD from Osmania University, and a gifted scientist with vast experience in defense research in both basic and applied science. During his illustrious career, Dr. Saraswat has been credited with indigenous development of missiles, namely
I think, Monica, you can stop here. Say that I am member NITI Aayog and have been working with all of you for many years in different disciplines. That's more than enough for my introduction. Thank you so much.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Over to you, sir.
It's a very interesting discussion which is going on here, and I certainly would like to share with you some of the aspects which have been brought out. These aspects are relatively with respect to what India is going to do and what we should do in this context. All of us know that natural resources in 21st century are certainly the ways and means of growth and development, and this certainly contributes exceptionally to the economies. And mining is one of the core industries of the economy, which provides basic raw materials to many important industries. It is an international business and a vital contributor to the national global economies. Now, when you do mining, certainly we need to actually communicate the risk, and which depends on the trust and confidence of the investors and other stakeholders for its financial and operational well-being. All of us are aware of these simple facts. If you look at the contribution of mining sector, which is a very important sector for us, my data says that from 2012-13, we were contributing almost about 1.9 or 1.95% of our GDP, which came down in 16-17 to as low as 1.57, and now slightly rising, and we have reached 1.75. But if I draw a straight line, you will find that it is almost like a linear decline. But there are many factors which are responsible for this. I won't go into that. Basically, some of the policies which came out, some of the court issues which came out, and things like that. But the fact remains that there has been a decline of the mining output as far as the GDP is concerned. Now, coming to what exactly should be the standard to be followed for reporting, and after listening to all of you about the Crisco, I find that it is a very well recognized organization. It is such an international accounting standards and part of the United Nations Economic Commission and the International Council for Mining and things like that. And all the benefits which I saw, it also provides mandatory system for classification of grade, recognized for public reporting, and it sets minimum standards for public reporting and publishes the report based on the work undertaken. And I like the most important thing by a competent person or organization. It is not just ad hocly given. It certainly gives us public reports are prepared under the supervision of a competent person who takes personal responsibility, brings out the clear distinction between resources and the reserves, excludes uneconomic and undiscovered materials, and Crisco standards quantity, quality, and categorization mineral assets on the basis of data, models, and the criteria. In the Indian context, what we have been doing, whether the Crisco is, how it can be adopted or what we are doing. The Mining Engineers Association of India constituted a national committee for reporting, as was brought out, the mineral resources NACRI in 2015. 5-year-long efforts fructified with the Crisco recognizing the NACRI as a national reporting organization with effect from August 2019. And now, Crisco also approved the Indian Mineral Industry Code for reporting exploration results, mineral resources, and results developed by NACRI as a reporting standard for India. If you go by these positives, the present reporting system of the mineral resources in India is using the UN framework classification. And the UN framework classification in which government, intergovernmental or NGO reporting of mineral resources and estimates and forecasts with the objective as reliable mineral inventory to underpin minerals policies available to exploration and mining companies to attract inward investment and exploration activity. So what we have to see whether this particular platform which we have followed so far, has it really improved or it has brought in the required amount of investment in this particular sector? Has the participation of the private sector increased? Is the information available to the public is good enough to take the risks which are involved in doing the mining operations? If you take stock of all this, certainly there have been some question marks on this aspect. And I think Dr. Sharma will be in a position, Aruna Sharma will be in a position to give a better picture on that. But my personal feeling is that there has been always an issue whether the information is available, adequate or not adequate, reliable or unreliable, and things like that. So the proposed mineral reporting using Crisco, where the disclosure of companies, it is done for companies which are quoted on the stock exchanges, with the objective to give reliable, transparent information for investors and potential investors. And that actually gives us a very clear thing. What is the difference between Crisco and the UNFC? I think earlier speakers have been able to bring out some of these differences. If you look at Crisco, it is for public reporting, whereas the UNFC, not acceptable for public reporting. In Crisco, we have mandatory system for classification. In the case of UNFC, it is a voluntary system of classification with a choice of 48 categories. There are no rules imposed on disclosure of categories or resources. Whereas Crisco is about giving public reports to be based on work undertaken by a competent person. Here, the evaluated definition in the case of UNFC is vague and is left to adopting country. Nobody takes the responsibility actually. Crisco certainly has got very clear, or at least the minimum standards for public reporting, whereas in the case of UNFC, it is entirely at the discretion of the reporting. The mapping of mineral reserves and resources for UNFC is allowed, and here also it is mapping of classes to be are not allowed in the case of Crisco is not directly applied here. And in Crisco, we are not allowed to report any discovered uneconomic or unrecoverable or undiscovered categories. Whereas in the case of UNFC, you have the freedom for declaring all categories, including undiscovered, are considered for reporting. So you can see the distinct, certain amount of unaccountability is there as far as the UNFC is concerned. And there is a vagueness, and there could be a doubt as far as the data which is being presented. And that becomes a major issue. And that's why Government of India also started looking at. And there were many questions asked when the internal debate was going on. If India adopts Crisco standards, will it make the mineral resources of the country more reliable for the investors worldwide? And will it attract investment? So answer to this, what we have given is yes. If we do that, it certainly will help the more investments to come, better investment, and people will be able to take more research. We also said that the national mineral inventory can be recorded separately. That need not be part of this. Then recognition and confidence of mineral resources and reserves. And it will encourage detailed scientific exploration to improve reliability. If India adopts this, it will improve potential for more Indian junior mining companies to form and contribute to the GDP. It will also add to the faster growth of the industry. These are some of the points which were brought out by us at that point in time. So what is the present status as far as Government of India is concerned? In the case of Government of India, in order to ensure that the results of the exploration are accurate and conform to globally accepted standards, Government of India is considering the inclusion of the globally accepted classification standards like Crisco, GORC, etc., along with the UNFC classification. That means you want to create a framework which has probably the good points of all of them, and that will certainly give us better opportunities for getting FDIs, better investments, better private sector investment, and improved economy in terms of the contribution to GDP. That's the whole idea. So this framework is presently being worked out, and with the objective that it should result in overall growth of the mining sector. It should also increase in mineral exploration and thus less import dependence and more private participation, high share of mining in India's GDP. This is what is being thought of. So Government of India is proposing a new set of rules which will provide the following advantages to the central government notified agencies. It will give selection of blocks, conducting preliminary exploration, preparing the memorandum containing all information, and sharing the information data with the state governments. That is what the purpose of this particular thing is going to be there. We also look at that Indian vision for mineral exploration towards increasing FDI inflow and outflow. We all know that the FDI inflow turns into FDI outflow if there is no avenue to generate return on investment. The domestic capital will flow out if no avenue is there for exploration and mining. So in India, FDI flow in 2016 was about 596 million, and FDI outflow at that time was 2,166 million, which clearly shows that FDI outflow of the domestic capital to foreign countries for mining far exceeds the inflow. That means the Indian capital is moving out of the country to generate socio-economic development and create jobs abroad, not in our country. So a reliable mineral resources reserve inventory to underpin mineral estimates will be used by the mining companies to attract investment and promote exploration and development activity. That is our mineral. That is what we want to do in this case. So when we look at the present policy, which is still in the framing, and hopefully in near future you will have major decisions on that. But I can only mention that it will have almost everything what the Crisco is talking about. It may have a few more additions taken from JORC or maybe from the UNFC. But ultimately, the whole purpose of this reporting strategy would be to ensure that you have fairly reliable and accurate data presented to avoid to make people invest and also certain amount of risk sharing will take place. There is a very good idea in this case what Crisco is doing, that you are proposing an international template for reporting. I was very happy to see that. If India can also follow a similar international template, then it will certainly standardize the whole process. My issue in this particular case is, how do you handle the security issue? Can you make sure that even in Crisco, this is a question which probably during the panel discussion we can discuss, but certainly there is an issue of security, because inventory of the mineral resources, although it will be maintained separately, but the moment you put the things out into the open, anybody can aggregate it, and then you will have a critical assessment of what are the reserves and what are the resources available. And that can also create a situation, because any reserve and the resource is a kind of the country's resource, and that becomes brings certain amount of vulnerability. So we'll have to look at that part. Should the information be shared with only interested parties? Should it be done only for those who are actually going to be interested in taking exploration or mining activities? I mean, how do you think this can be implemented without compromising on the security aspect? That has to be addressed in a big way. Finally, I would like to say that the UNFC 2009 is certainly not a good framework, because India has not got benefited in terms of the GDP contribution, nor it has been benefited in terms of employment generation in the way which we wanted. So there is a need for a change. A need for a change towards Crisco is very positive. Government of India is thinking in that direction, and a new framework is going to emerge. I think the necessary papers are being moved in that direction. So inputs from this webinar, whatever happened today, I think certainly will be very useful, and they will be put into use when the final policy paper on this is submitted to the Government of India. Any more information that the association is ready to put in a positive manner to assist the framework will be welcome. That is what we are looking at. But we have captured all the points which have been presented today. Certainly, we will pass it on to the because NITI Aayog is certainly looking at some of them, and pass it on to the ministry concerned, and probably it will help in bringing this whole standardization process for reporting into a good shape, and the country will benefit. So thank you for inviting me, and I hope I have given you some picture of what Government of India is planning to do. Change is inevitable, it will happen, and it will happen in near future. That's much assurance I can give.
Thank you so much, Mr. V.K. Saraswat. So you have absolutely given a very clear difference between the reporting standards by Crisco and UNFC, and you have shared your concerns and questions, and I really hope that our panel will be able to answer your queries. With this, I will move on to our next panelist. We have Mr. P.V. Rao. He's a co-chair of National Committee for Reporting Mineral Resource and Reserves in India. A little introduction about Mr. P.V. Rao. Mr. P.V. Rao, soon after obtaining MSc technical degree from Distinguished in Applied Geology in 1975, joined Indian mining sector and serving from last 3 decades. He is an IIT Kharagpur during 1984-89 batch, and as part of his research work leading to award of PhD in 1989. Mr. Rao served Tata Steel as head of mine planning and chief of geological survey before he decided to part with in 2005. He had the honor of serving Andhra University, Visakhapatnam as honorary professor of geology for 2 years from 2015. Over to you, Mr. P.V. Rao. And I believe you also have a presentation, so I'm making you a presenter to share your screen. Request you to please keep your PPT open. Sir.
Thank you, Monica. I feel overwhelmed to hear our chief guest, Dr. V.K. Saraswat, the way he has narrated the total story, as if that he has been living in this particular initiative. That is how it came out, actually. He has touched upon each and every aspect that we have been working for the last 5 years. Thank you, sir, for your nice presentation of thoughts. Now, Dr. Aruna Sharma, another accomplished bureaucrat, she made our task much simpler by setting the tone for the entire webinar. Thank you, ma'am. I have with me my Crisco colleagues, Mr. Ken and Mr. Neil, and my MEAI colleagues, Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik, Dr. Abani Samal, and Mr. Pankaj Satija. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity of joining you as a panelist. Now I'll proceed with my presentation. I will be dealing with the role of NACRI in promoting international best practices in Indian resource sector. This is being organized by MEAI, my organization, Mining Engineers Association of India, and Metalogic. I will just walk you through the saga of NACRI. NACRI is an acronym for National Committee for Reporting Mineral Resources and Reserves in India. The first step was taken on December 18, 2014, when the topic was, the initiative was conceived by the then MEAI President, Mr. Bagchi, Dr. Abani Samal, youngest of the group, and myself. We three sat together and we started working on this and called a roundtable conference on that particular date. That is how it all started. It is an independent and not-for-profit body. See, we conceived this body from the beginning like this, for various reasons, because we have several professional organizations and we want to bring them together under this umbrella. For that reason, we had to form another organization. Otherwise, there are countries where one single professional body can be the NRO itself. It is possible. But we went for a different structure, like JORC. It is an independent and not-for-profit body formed on 2015, November 10th. It is sponsored by the Mining Engineers Association of India. It was formed with the representatives from professional bodies. Several professional bodies were there. We had SGAT, we had MGMI, we had Geological Society of India, we had MEAI. All these professional bodies participated, government and regulators. We had the participation of SEBI, we had the participation of IVM, we had the participation of GSI, Atomic Minerals Directorate, all these people participated. Mineral industry bodies like FIMI, ASOCHA, they participated. Leading mining and consultancy companies like Tata Steel, Vedanta Group, NMDC, and many big companies, they were part of this, and academia from IIT Kharagpur, and independent domain experts. The strength of this particular NACRI is the independent domain experts, because they don't have any personal interest left with the company or anything like that. They are experts, but their advice is available freely and with no bias. It is guided by a NACRI charter approved by the Crisco. This charter has been prepared and it was discussed at length with Crisco before it got approved. See, what is the structure of NACRI? I will talk about NACRI only in my presentation. That is my domain and I want to present that. This NACRI structure, it is a maximum of 30 members can be in the NACRI, consisting of nominees from the professional organization. For example, MEAI is a professional organization in the country. It can nominate 4 persons. In addition to that, we have the supporting professional organizations like Geological Society and other bodies, leading mining companies, leading exploration companies, government and regulators, mineral industry representatives, and domain experts. These are all the members of this for 30 max. Their term of reference is for 2 years, which can be renewed. Then out of these 30, 10 people will form the NACRI Managing Committee, in which the PO nominates 2 people from amongst his 4 people, and domain experts 2 people. So 4 people will be the NACRI Managing Committee as of now, which can go up to 10, subject to joining more POs into the NACRI. Then out of these 10, 2 will become the co-chairs. 1 will be from the professional body, another one is from domain experts. Suppose tomorrow we have another professional organization joining, we will have 1 more co-chair from that particular professional organization. This is how the structure works. So now we heard about Crisco, we heard of MEAI, now we are hearing about NACRI. What is the relationship actually, how they function? See, Crisco is made up of representatives from the NROs. So like from India, we have 2 representatives on Crisco. Similarly, there are another 13 countries that are participating in Crisco. There are 26, including India, 28 representatives are there in Crisco. That is the body of Crisco as of now. As it increases, every country will nominate 2 more people. It is managed by an executive body with its chairperson, the past chair, deputy chair, secretary, and treasurer. That is the committee that controls this Crisco. And the major responsibility, it prepares and maintains the template. That is its major responsibility. Also, it approves the NROs, POs, national codes, and code of ethics. In case of India, it approved NACRI as the NRO, MEAI as a PO, IMIC as the national code, and we have the code of ethics. Then under this Crisco, when it approves the NRO, it approved NACRI as the NRO. What is NACRI? NACRI is the National Reporting Organization in India. This is responsible actually for the reporting of this particular thing. This has a direct relation with Crisco, and mutually they will be working between the NRO and Crisco. And simultaneously, NACRI also works with the POs. In India, MEAI is the professional organization. Under NACRI, it has a charter guided by which it works actually, and it also maintains the code. The code is the Indian Mineral Industry Code. So the code is prepared and maintained by NACRI. That is the responsibility of NACRI. And in turn, it passes on to the professional organization to implement that code. What the professional organization does is, it has the function of registering the competent persons and also to look after the professional development of the professionals, mainly the members of the MEAI as of now. And it has a code of ethics by which it controls the competent persons. And NACRI is involved in engagement with the various stakeholders. In the last 5 years, starting from 2015 of its formation in November, it interacted with all the organizations that are shown here. It started with the MOM actually, but now NITI Aayog also we had interactions recently with Mr. Ahmed, advisor to the NITI Aayog. And we had interaction from the beginning with the MOM, Ministry of Mines, starting from Dr. Balwinder Kumar, who participated in our Crisco annual general meeting held at airport, on which on the dais he has declared that Indian government is prepared to support this initiative, but they wanted that this code should become ready and get approved by the Crisco. Now it is ready. We accomplished it in the month of August 2019. We were in touch with Ministry of Coal. We are also in touch with Atomic Minerals Directorate and SEBI. See, from MOM, MOEC, and AMD, in almost all our seminars and professional development programs, their representatives are directly participating in these things from IBM side or GSI side or any other functions. And we had a meeting with SEBI directly to convince them the importance of this particular code and the need for SEBI to introduce the code for listing of Indian mining and exploration companies. We had a great discussion with them in their office at Mumbai. And what they suggested was that first we get a code approved by Crisco, then I get a approval from the government of India, then we will introduce. We agreed to it and we came back and we started working. We did not stop our initiative at any point of time, in spite of all the resistance from different quarters, but we continued. Now we got a code. Then we are interacting with mineral industry leaders like FIMI. FIMI is there from the beginning. It was supporting our initiative, and ASSOCHAM was also supporting. And professional bodies, as I told earlier, Mining Engineers Association of India, Mining Geological and Metallurgical Institute of India, that is MGMI. Then we have Society of Geoscientists and Allied Technologies, SGAT. Then we have Geological Society of India. All these professional bodies were supporting us from the beginning. And we went to the extent of making MGMI as another PO, where Crisco has spent a lot of its efforts and money in conducting courses, in conducting meetings with MGMI. But unfortunately, at the last moment, there were some differences because of which we could not go further with MGMI. Then we ended up with doing MEAI, and we went ahead with that. Then we have Crisco, as I told earlier, we have the interaction with Crisco. Our 2 member representatives are there on Crisco, whose responsibility is to inform the Crisco what we are doing, and at the same time what developments are taking place with Crisco are informed back to NACRI. And we also have the responsibility of interacting with the national reporting organizations of other countries. As Mr. Neil explained, we have the reciprocity procedure by which the competent persons of India can become eligible to write the reports in another country using their code. So this could be possible, subject to we enter into an agreement with the respective NRO in that particular country, which is possible and it is happening. And the major part of NACRI is professional development programs to conduct and see that a professional gets benefit of using the best practices in the resource sector, for which NACRI has formed a committee under the leadership of Dr. A. Srikanth, who had been a professor in IIT Kharagpur earlier in mining department. Now we formed a committee, and the committee is working on the syllabus and whatever is required for conducting that particular course, and we are going to launch it very shortly from our MEAI chapters. In this,
sorry, Doctor, sorry to interrupt. Shri V.K. Saraswat has to leave for another meeting. Saraswat sir, your office just called me, so they told me about your meeting at 4:30.
Yeah.
So you're not audible. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to leave. Yes, yes. I'll be very happy if there's any question to me before I leave. Otherwise, I would like to thank you all.
Sir, questions.
Sorry, Mr. Rao, for interruption.
No, thank you, sir. No problem.
Sanjay, sir, you like to say
request,
anything? Yes,
just one request, Mr. Saraswat, that the need is
Yes,
to expedite this entire process, because the entire mechanism of survey and making the mines available for extraction is a long gestation period. And what is being targeted at in India for mining industry to contribute to GDP, like you rightly said, and it is also an industry which provides a quality, sustainable employment, which is another problem India is facing. So that is my request, that if it is put into a timelines and expedited, so that will go a very long way. Thank you.
I think we are already on the move, and as far as discussions are concerned, I think many of you must be knowing that the process is almost over. The cabinet note is getting ready, and it should be in the cabinet anytime. So that's in the accelerated mode. But there are certain inconsistencies from what I hear from various presenters today and what is being incorporated there. So I personally believe that the kind of interaction what Mr. Rao was presenting, that interaction should have taken place once again with NITI Aayog and the Ministry of Mine, so that those gaps can be filled and we get a robust system of reporting, with ensuring that the security of the resources is not compromised. That kind of a thing should be done. While transparency will be there, it will also enable people to make investments. It will also be able to de-risk the whole process, but not at the cost of the security of the resources. That is all we would like to make sure that it happens. So maybe one more round, you guys can have one more round of discussion before the paper is in the cabinet.
Thank you, sir. Thanks very much for your kind presence and very encouraging words. Sir, as you suggested, maybe Mining Engineers Association of India, the proceedings of this we will write to you, sir. And wanted to also inform you that we already had one round of a discussion with Mr. Ishtiaq Ahmad.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. Yes.
Yes. So we will continue
But
this, but thanks for the time and really encouraging words. We are really encouraged.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Namaskar.
Thank you. Can I proceed, Monica?
Dr. Rao, please continue. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, thank you. See, the role of NACRI is to produce and maintain the Indian Mineral Industry Code, that is IMIC, compatible with Crisco template. See, whenever we undertake any changes in the IMIC, we cannot do it in isolation. It has to be in touch with Crisco and its NROs. All have to accept any modifications that we bring in IMIC at a later date. And to consult the NROs, other NROs, before amending the IMIC to maintain alignment and consistency with Crisco template. That's what I explained. And to include credible self-regulating professional bodies like MEAI, as of now MEAI is there, which has enforceable code of ethics and discipline to govern the behavior of competent persons as a PO. See, the members have to be the members of MEAI first, then they have to satisfy certain qualification and experience, then they have to undergo some professional training, then they can be registered. Once they are registered, it's the responsibility of the MEAI to see that they follow ethical code. There is a detailed ethical code provided to each competent person, and they have to follow that. Then this NACRI has to extend support to Crisco activities, all its activities, by nominating 2 NACRI representatives on Crisco. We have 2 persons as of now, myself and Mr. Pattnaik. We 2 are the representatives of NACRI on Crisco. This members, this NACRI has the responsibility of paying annual membership fee to Crisco, varying from this year we paid $500. Earlier it used to be $2,000. Maybe it may be varying with times. This is one thing we have to pay every year to that, and also participate in the annual general meetings held in different countries, depending upon the chairperson location or whatever may be the conditions at that point of time. This year, since physically it is not possible to hold it, we had a virtual meeting conducted for 6 days. It was a marathon meeting every day for 3 hours. It was conducted by Mr. Ken very successfully. First time we have done it virtual meeting. And NACRI has to encourage the best practices leading to reliable reserve reports. That is the crux of the total thing, and better serve the interest of the investors. Whether it is a stock exchanges or auction, auction is taken very lightly. Otherwise, is as important as a stock exchange, as far as the investors are concerned. Then the role of MEAI. What MEAI has to do in this particular thing, it has to self-regulate its professional organization, independent body representing the interests of mineral industry professionals. That is the self-regulated body. And its members, it includes mining professionals at different, mining means it can be geoscientists, it can be anybody working for the mineral industry at different levels of membership. MEAI is having different membership categories, and their membership requirements are defined along with the qualification and experience. That's the role of MEAI as a PO. And it is responsible for promoting continuous professional development, ongoing training, development and maintaining the skills, and verify and maintain the CP training records. As and when the training is imported to the CP, those records are to be maintained by the MEAI, so that when he comes for the renewal of his certification, then they have to be verified and certified that he has undergone the required training hours. And it has the responsibility of governing the professional behavior of the members, its members, enforceable code of ethics and conduct, disciplinary process for breaches of ethics and conduct. That includes a suspension if somebody breaches the ethics or code of conduct. Then the member can be suspended or permanently expelled from the organization. So I wanted to make these suggestions. Anyhow, our chief guest is not there. We need to translate the national mineral policies into effective rules and regulations reflecting their intent. That is very important, which is partly missing. SEBI may have to play a more proactive role in enabling the listing of exploration or mining companies. So as of now, SEBI is not really concentrating on the junior companies that we call them as exploration companies in their listing, because the SEBI requirement says that the company that goes for listing must have a financial setup. That financial setup says that it must have a 3 years continuous profit making finances of that particular company. Being a junior company and an exploration company, it doesn't have a balance sheet of the kind where it makes a profits. It only spends money. It doesn't earn any money during exploration stage. So for these reasons, in all the global stock exchanges, special conditions are made for listing of the exploration mining companies, which probably SEBI must adopt. Government may constitute broad-based expert committees that represent all stakeholders. When it's forming committees, there are several committees are formed by different nodal agencies. They should also consider including professional bodies, especially like large professional bodies like MEAI. They should be members of those particular committees. And NACRI, to promote better collaboration amongst professional organizations in the resource sector, is the responsibility of NACRI to see that more and more professional bodies join into this particular initiative and make this as a success in the resource sector. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rao, for sharing the framework of NACRI. Now we have our last panelist. After that, we will do a Q&A, and then Mr. Pankaj Satija will do the concluding remark. We have Dr. Abani Samal, founder and principal of GeoGlobal LLC. Mr. Abani is an MTech from IIT ISM Dhanbad and MS and DIC from Imperial College London, PhD from SIU, sorry, Mr. Abani, SIU USA, currently founder and principal of GeoGlobal LLC USA since 2015, and advisor to the World Bank Mendeavour project in Nigeria and consultant to many exploration and mining projects worldwide. A founding co-chair and member of NACRI, past Crisco representative for India, along with Dr. Rao, a council member of MEAI, registered member of SME and fellow SE. Over to you, Dr. Abani Samal, and I believe you also have a presentation to make.
Yes.
I'm making you a presenter. Please keep your PPT open.
Good afternoon and good morning. Monica, can you hear me?
Sir, we can hear you, but I'm not able to see your screen.
Just a second. What are you able to see? Anything?
No.
Oh, okay.
Actually, yeah. Now it's visible to us.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone in India, and good morning to Ken and Neil. This is also very early morning, like 5 o'clock now in US, in the western side. What I'm going to talk about is the IMEAI. This is the full name of this code is called is Indian Mineral Industry Code for reporting mineral resources and reserves in India. I have to remind all the listeners here and the panelists here, this name was really coined by Dr. Harry Parker, who is not with us today. And I remember him very vividly today while making this presentation and preparing for this, and what an inspiration he has been to all of us throughout the journey. I wish he was there with us even today. This is a Made in India code and recognized by the rest of the Crisco member countries. And this is also for the listeners, this code is available for download from Crisco's website. Like I said, India is the 14th member. It's already been shared by Ken and Neil before. We talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat today and talk about, Make in India with a large slogan of Make in India under this current administration of India. Here are the highlights of this IMEAI. This is prepared by the mineral industry professionals in India. Like Dr. Rao already highlighted about NACRI, this code, when we prepared this code, all the members from GSI, MGMI, ASHOCAM, and their affiliated members, and also PMI's representation was there. I have to also mention that the day we made the first final draft from NACRI to go to Crisco, we had the representation from Government of India. The local representative of IBM was there for 2 days reviewing the code with us. We have been actually very, very fortunate to have the support of entire Indian mining industry. Here are some names. I really thank to all of them. I really couldn't name all of them in here. It's just a small list. And so some of these companies and their representatives are with NACRI for all 6 long years, and that we hope that they'll continue with us, with their support. like I said, it took us about 2.5 years to prepare a draft. This may seem like a long time, isn't it? But I have to remind all the listeners in here, the NACRI members are volunteers. Some of us have day jobs, and like I'm here in US, and many of us actually at different parts of India, coming together, contributing to IMEC preparation is not a joke. It's all 30 members actually. They participated in as the members of this the 6 different committees, as you can see here. And in April 2017, we all gathered and reviewed the draft code before it goes to Crisco. Thanks to MEAI, from the very beginning, they have been a full supporter of this this initiative of bringing this Crisco initiative to India. And they, as a result, they are the PO, the recognized PO by of Crisco in India. And I have been actually lucky to be part of this group for all these years. And throughout the revision period, me and Dr. Rao have interacted with Crisco teams. Just to remind all of you that the IMEC just did not come just after 2017, we just made it final now. It's about 2 years it was discussed with the Crisco team members, and to make sure that all the ingredients that is needed by Crisco, and it also satisfied all the needs of Indian mineral industry are there. So it has lots of back and forth in interactions. It took us 2 years. I would say about 9th or 10th version we saw. Then I lost count there. And as a result, all the Crisco member countries approved it, and then we have IMEC today. It is as good as any other core that we have in the world, right? I am very much aware that the other cores being used today in India, including JORC, it does have the same governing principles as the Crisco template: transparency, materiality, and competency. I wish the chief guest was here. Learn a little more about and interact with us about the IMEC. But it is a code based on the latest definition of Crisco as of August 1, 2019. IMEC will adopt all the new definitions and guidelines when Crisco template changes. So please make sure that we all understand IMEC is meant for India, made in India, and internationally recognized. It's ready to be implemented. It incorporates a competent person system that is as good as, or maybe better than, many other countries. If you look at the qualifications of the competent persons, what we call registered competent person in India, as per the bylaws of the charter of NACRI, and as it is defined in IMEC also. The RCP, the minimum qualification required to become an RCP is more stringent than many other countries require in their respective countries, respective jurisdictions. The IMEC is uniquely suitable for India, and from that aspect, it should be preferred by the Indian mineral industry over other codes being used in India. It's suitable for all solid minerals occurring in India. What I mean by that is, if you go to major mining companies from Australia, they report their assets or the mineral resources as per Australian JORC code. Like Neil mentioned, by his employers, they use PORC code, right? And the United States companies having headquarters in the United States, there are a couple of companies, they also use the code that is implemented in the United States. Canadian companies are also setting examples there. Why not? This is time for the Indian mining companies to come forward and use IMEC as the reporting code. Rest assured, it is internationally recognized and Crisco is Crisco approved. Should not be a problem. It's easy to adapt. It's because it's based on the same governing principles, using the same definitions as Crisco template as any other code like JORC or NI 43101 or other codes, Crisco family codes. So it's easy to adapt. If you have used another code, you can easily switch over to IMEAI. It requires, if you require training, and NACRI members are there, NACRI is there, and MEAI is all the chapters throughout India. They'll be able to help you to get the right training. Like
Sorry
I said,
to interrupt, Abani sir, you have 3 minutes to go.
Okay, the minimum professional experience required is 10 years of industry experience, out of which 5 years is relevant experience. That means a geologist reporting for exploration results has to be a geologist, not a metallurgist. With so minimum 10 years and 5 years relevant experience. That is the minimum qualifications for RCP, and it has RCP has to be a member of the PO. Right now it's MEAI. So if you need more information, please let MEAI know. They can actually provide you the required guidance. This has already been discussed. I think Dr. Saraswat said the contribution of mining industry to GDP is less than 2%. Mine data, it looks like a little bit old. It was 2.6%. If you look at this current status, where you want to be, I think, to me, IMEAI is the solution. It is the answer. The IMEAI uses the same definitions already other presenters mentioned about it. It's different from UNFC code. There is some mapping that exists, but let's not get confused in here. The main the two items of IMEAI, it uses the table 1 and table 2. I encourage all the listeners to go and download the IMEAI and go through them. It provides the foreign investors a comparable and relatable language and terminology, because we are using the same definitions as prescribed by Crisco in Crisco template. It's easier to assess the opportunities and risks of their investment. How we actually attract the investment opportunities using IMEAI is just one slide in here. We can actually use the IMEAI also in the auctioning process. It can be used to assess access to reliable and complete information, which internally increases the confidence in the data. We can be used for assess the potential risk and the opportunities. Hence, the potential investors have a chance to reduce the risk of their investment as they desire. The success in auctioning process would encourage more investments opportunities over time. The same thing would happen when we want to actually raise funds through the stock exchanges. Further benefits, the implementation of IMEAI will enhance the probabilities of attracting FDI and the mineral resources in India. It will speed up the exploration process through participation of more competent players in the field. It will encourage the scientific exploration process and detailed studies required actually for enhancing the confidence on the data and the information that a prospective investor needs. It provides the opportunities for merger and acquisition activities in the mining industry. Also, the growth of the mineral industry may ultimately lead to increasing the contribution to the GDP. That's all. And thank you all. My contact information here. Anyone wants to interact after this presentation. Thank you, Monica. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abani Sabal. I know, Madam, Dr. Aruna Sharma has to go, but ma'am, I'll free you in maybe 5-7 minutes if that is okay with you. So now we are starting the Q&A. And before that, I would like to ask one question from our audience and from our panelists. It's again a poll question, which is on your screen now. So the question is, What do you see as a major hurdle in adopting international standards in India? What do you see as the main hurdle in adopting such standards in India? The options are lack of knowledge. Second, resistance to change. Third option, implementation problems. Or fourth, others. Please vote, audience and panelists. What do you see as a major hurdle in adopting such standards in India? Is it lack of knowledge, resistance to change, implementation problem, or any other? %45 people have voted. Please vote. And then we will have comments from our panelists over the responses. So here are the results. So the result says only 13% people feel lack of knowledge, 29% audience feel resistance to change, and 54% people feel that there is a implementation problems. Now I will open the panel. I request all the panelists to please unmute your mics. Please unmute your mic and comment over the response received by the audience. So our audience feel the major hurdle is implementation problem. Who like to comment first? Anybody can comment.
See, to me, it's probably the lack of knowledge. That's what I would think. But the audience looks like they have a different opinion there. But I do agree with the resistance to change. That is there. We can feel it. Implementation problem, if that's what they think, I would like Madam Sharma to comment on that.
See, my reaction to this is something like blind people trying to define the elephant. Once the decision is taken to go for this code, all these 3 dimensions will fall in place. Because, coding is something the miners understand and the investors also understand. The foreign investors understand the internationally accepted standards. So that's not an issue of knowledge at all. And it's an issue of that how quickly we set the ball rolling. And once we set it, I think then this resistance of change, this 29% will disappear. And implementation problem, 54% will start easing out as we move, what the audience poll thinks. So something where it lies in is to set the ball rolling, because the ball is not set rolling. It's all presumptions, assumptions, which is sort of guiding factor in this poll. That's what I strongly say.
Satija, sir, you can also comment on this, and then we can have view of Mr. P.V. Rao and Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik on this.
Yeah, so it depends on the context or the point which a person who is polling is going through. So usually we always feel that if the law is made, we will do it. So that's why many of the people thought that if the implementation is we can do. Dr. Abani Samal, he is from a training background, so he feels that training also should be given. So it in the context of the individual who is answering, and I feel that all the aspects are important, and that's why the polling is done. And the government of India has shown very keen interest, as Aruna ma'am was saying, that a task force has been made. Due to COVID, it could not progress further, but I'm sure that both NITI Aayog and the Ministry of Mines, they're very keen to take it forward. And once it is done, but then at the same time, we also should be prepared. So once it comes, it should not be a question on miners or the professional body that what's now? The law has been made, but where are you now? So we need to work together so that if it comes, we have to go full throttle.
Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik, and then Mr. P.V. Rao.
I completely agree, 200% with what ma'am said. You know, any change, there is always a bit of an apprehension, especially in India. Any change, whether the income tax rules go online and all that, or we can talk about GST, we can talk about many things. Any change, we have a bit of an apprehension. There is absolutely no lack of knowledge. And once this is sort of rolled out, I think everything will fall in place. And the same guys would have feel that this is the real framework to be adopted, this is the real code to be adopted.
Honestly, I thought that the audience will vote on lack of knowledge because that was my point of view. But apparently, the result says that it says a different story altogether. So they feel the implementation and resistance to change. Mr. P.V. Rao, you have a comment?
Probably that is a positive point. Lack of knowledge has not got many votes because our contribution to this particular past 5 years helped them actually to learn more about it. Coming to the point, see our experience with UNFC implementation since 2004, though the UNFC in 1997 was implemented, but it started implementation in 2004 in India. I remember I was also a participant at that point of time representing Tata Steel in the first meeting. The experience of implementation of UNFC in India was not so good, not so great. In the words of IBM officials, in their presentations, they spelled out that even now, the 1997 version which is being followed after getting 2009 and 2019 versions, which we have not touched yet, they are not very successful. They feel that they are not very successful implementing it, even the old version. See, that is the feeling that exists in the industry as well as the regulator.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd like to have the same question from Mr. Neil Wells. Since this international standards has been adopted by many countries, as a past co-chairman, immediate past chairman, what sort of challenges you faced from other countries? And meanwhile, Aruna ma'am, you're free to go whenever you like.
Yeah.
So,
like others have commented.
Right then, I think I will have to make an exit because I have a meeting at 5. So very nice to share with the panelists, and I look forward to see a success of India adopting this, right? Okay, nice meeting Neil and Ken. Very nice. And each one.
Profusely thank you on behalf of MEAI, and profusely thank you, ma'am, for your presence. And you've always been a big source of inspiration to us. And thank you for your comments. Thank you for your presence, and thank you for your encouragement.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah, Mr. Neil, please continue.
Okay, so like a number of the other panelists have commented, I'm surprised that the highest score was related to other problems with implementation, and a very low score on lack of knowledge. So maybe that suggests that the work of NACRI that's been going on all these years in preparation has really done what it was supposed to do, and people are aware of that. You know, if that's what the attendees genuinely think, then actually adoption and implementation shouldn't be too difficult. If people have the knowledge and have the expertise and believe that they're sufficiently able to report in line with the Indian standard, then that's certainly not going to be the impediment. I think these other resistance to implementation, maybe there's
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Nil, because I believe when the knowledge has been provided, you are already halfway. And just the implementation is the challenge which comes next after providing the knowledge. We are starting our next poll. After that, I would request Pankaj sir to please conclude the session. So this question is on your screen. A uniform set of codes, standards for reporting mineral would reduce time, effort, and expenses. Do you agree? Audience, please vote. Panelists, please vote. A uniform set of codes, standards for reporting mineral would reduce time, efforts, and expense. Do you agree? Please vote. You know, the results are coming very, very encouraging. I will display once it crosses maximum audience vote for the same. A uniform set of code standards for reporting mineral would reduce time, effort, and expense. Do you agree? So here are the results. 86% people feel yes, 7% feel no, and 7 people are saying they are undecided. Can't say. 86% people feel yes. So somewhere everyone are agreeing to the fact that we need to adopt, standards. We need to bring change in mineral reporting, and this will certainly help in reducing time, energy, and expenses. Anyone like to comment? With 86% people are saying yes.
So that's a runaway. So maybe Pankaj can start his concluding remarks.
Yeah.
Probably that's a little, yeah. Neil, please carry on.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. We are at the end of the session, and festive seasons are also getting over, and the festive time, Deepavali, will come very soon. And in this festive season, there is a famous shloka of Upanishad, which many Indians recite, that Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Means that there is a whole which is infinite. We take the infinite from the infinite, and then the infinite remains. When I was looking at application of this shloka, I thought it is very well related to exploration and resource reporting. We all know that in 1950s and 1960s, many of the companies, as well as the geographical locations, there was certain report of X ton of mineral. After 50 years, 2X minerals were extracted, but still X minerals remained. That has also led to many questions which has put miners at the back foot, that why did you not reported the correct reserve? They also thought that it was not a right choice when companies were being acquired. So these are the questions which were there at that point of time and were discussed today also. Mr. Neil very well elaborated on those points. It also reminds me one of the story in India, that we always get certain questions, that who am I? What for I have come on this earth? So this one sort of question came to one guy also, and he went to one of the saints. And the saint told that, okay, you observe what is happening inside and outside. The guy stayed for, say, 10 days, and he didn't find anything appealing to him to answer his question. When he was about to leave, a new saint came, and he had a discussion with the old saint. And the new saint elaborated all the aspects of different scriptures. Everyone got mesmerized. This guy told, he is the right choice, he is the right mentor, so I'll go with him tomorrow. But as the discussion was going on, the old saint told the new saint that you didn't speak anything. The new saint told that I spoke all the scriptures, I elaborated everything. So the old saint told that yes, scriptures were speaking, but you were not speaking. And same thing applies to this Crisco standards also. Where is the signature of a person who is writing the report? Where is the code of ethics? Where is the competent person? Where is the accountability of the results which is coming into that? And that part is more important when we are making a public report. And probably that's the reason that FDI has not come much into Indian industry. And Indian industry also in 2007 and 8, when they were trying to go out and venture for mineral resources in Mozambique, South Africa, Brazil, and other destinations, they also suffered a lot because they didn't rely on Crisco compliant resources. So with that background, first of all, I would like to thank Sanjay Pattnaik sir for his welcome address, and he elaborated the role of MEAI and NACRI, and he is the driving force behind this webinar, the way he has been pushing us, all of us, to have this program, have a wider engagement, well thought of discussions. So I thank Pattnaik sir for this. Monica, as usual, has been conducting these webinars throughout with a lot of charm and polling which have been added, and that has also glued the audience to participate. Dr. Aruna Sharma, she raised important basic questions highlighting that how the private investment in exploration can be further enhanced. And she told that it is very important for India, as most of the resources in India is unexplored, and probably if that thing comes, it will again change the destiny of Indian mining industry. Mr. Neil Wells described a brief history of Crisco and why its adoption is important, giving example of frauds that took place due to some lack of standard reporting standards like nickel bubble. And he mentioned that a template has been created under the standards for public reporting, which is very important. Crisco compliant reporting generates confidence in investors. The template contains common approach, common definition, common responsibility, and common standards maintaining consistency across countries. Thank you, Mr. Neil Wells, for your enlightening speech and talk. Mr. Ken Lomberg, he further explained the importance of adopting Crisco standards as it clarifies the risk involved in a project and makes investment more justifiable. He explained the importance of public reporting. And as I was mentioning, that he also highlighted that Crisco reporting is certified by individual, which generates a sense of accountability. He then explained the level of risk involved in various stages of exploration. He explained the definition of competent person, reporting code, and public reporting. Saraswat Sahab, as usual, he was flawless, and he spoke at length on this subject. He congratulated MEAI for working on adopting Crisco standards. He also mentioned that the contribution of mining in GDP is falling, so it is important that some standard will attract investors and more private participation will happen. The UNFCA standards also has to be looked into, and any prominent investment in the industry. So it's very important that some new standards are in place. Dr. P.V. Rao, he gave a brief on how the NACRI committee was formed. It is guided by NACRI chapter, approached by Crisco. He then described the NACRI committee structure. He explained the Crisco, MEAI, and macro relationship. NACRI also interacts with the stakeholders to inform that if India gets into an agreement with an RO of other countries, Indian professionals can write reports for other countries, and this will be very fruitful for the Indian professionals. Dr. Abani Samal, he also discussed about IMIC code prepared about the mineralistic professional India. Its preparation consisted of 30 members comprising of 6 committees and further refining by Crisco team members. So all the experts, they have elaborated very nicely on this subject, and I'm very much thankful to the audience. I saw great numbers on this particular topic, which has a niche in understanding, because mining as such is narrow. Then in mining, exploration is narrow, and exploration, this is standards. It requires a dedicated team of individuals who are really interested in understanding those standards. And that's why we saw a huge number of participants. On behalf of MEAI, NACRI, and Metalogic, I would like to thank bureaucrats who have been attending this program, be it NITI Aayog or Ministry of Mines. Their continuous support is very much needed for making this happen, which will again usher India into a new era of attracting FDI, and not taking much time. I thank one and all who have been involved in making this program successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pankaj sir, for providing a wonderful concluding remark. With this, I would like to thank our expert panelists, chief guest, for taking out time for us, and to our lovely audience. Our audience is, yes, a little upset that we could not take their questions. Maybe we can take up next time for sure. This webinar in particular was extremely important, as it was a bit different than other webinars. As we talked about Crisco role and the need for change in existing standards and need to bring changes. Audience, but for sure, I promise you that we will be doing a follow-up session soon, and we will be happy to take your questions. With this, I'd like to thank Mining Engineer Association, Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik, for giving Metalogic a chance to organize this wonderful webinar. Crisco, NACRI, as well as our sponsor, ArcelorMittal and Nippon Steel. Thank you so much. And viewers, a recorded version of this webinar is available on our YouTube channel now. You can visit to YouTube Metalogic PMS YouTube channel, official channel, to check the recording. The presentations of the webinar will be shared with you soon. With this, I'd like to thank all our panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjay Pattnaik, Mr. Ken Lomberg, Mr. Neil Well, Mr. Abani, Mr. Pankaj, and Dr. P.V. Rao. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Monica.
Thank you, Monica. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Ken.